Hi, and welcome to Dave's Think Tank. It occurs to me that I have not done a pinball repair video yet, and since I watch an awful lot of them, I thought it was probably about time I actually did one. These are my two machines. The Star Trek here, I'm going to do some work on today. I've owned it for about 30 years, and since '93, it was built in '78, so it had 15 very rough years before I got a hold of it. It had a lot of questionable repairs, most of which I've dealt with, some of which I still haven't. And we're just going to take a look at it today. Let me just turn it on. Oh. Hard to reach with the wrong hand here. There we go. So it's starting up, and you notice the playfield lights are not coming on. This has been a problem. It's been a problem with this machine for the 30 years that I've owned it. Every once in a while the playfield lights go out, and I always track it back to the back box, and I'll show you the problem in there in a minute. But I've been able to fix it, and it keeps going out, and I eventually found out what I thought was the problem was not the problem at all. Anyway, let's open up the back box and I'll show you. As I said, there are a lot of questionable repairs have gone on here. You can see in here a lot of the wires have been cut off in the past for some reason. You don't ever have to do that. These things just unplug. But that aside, what I've always found is that whenever the lights go out on the playfield, I just manipulate this electrical plug here, and that usually, jiggling it, eventually gets a connection going again. I actually replaced that recently. I'll show you the original one here. This was the original that was in there, and it's horrible. I don't know what they were trying to do with it. I've never done anything but jiggle it and try and clean it with some sandpaper or something. But this here, this was part of the connector. You can see it's really burnt badly. A lot of heat was going through there, obviously, and probably because these pins are so badly warped and so on. So I put it in a brand new one there. It looks all clean and neat, and but that was something I meant to do years ago. Finally got around to it a couple months back. And what inspired me to do that, well, this is a very difficult thing to do, take this whole power unit out. But what I found out was that the problem was not this plug at all, and jiggling it was actually jiggling the fuse holder, which there seemed to be some problem with the fuse. I'll show you what happens here. I've got a plastic ruler here, and I'm just going to reach in there and just touch that fuse, and look at that, the lights come back on. Just the slightest touch. There's something wrong with that fuse. And what I was actually doing when I pulled this whole unit out, I realized the fuse is probably, the solder's cracked on the back, so I pulled it out, resoldered the fuse, and at the same time replaced this nasty piece of work, and put it all back together and got the same problem. So there's something actually wrong with the fuse holder itself. So what I have done often in the past, when I've got an intractable problem, you'll see I've replaced the MPU board because it had a lot of damage on it. I've replaced the solenoid board, mostly because there weren't a lot of problems with the old one, but it was really scary looking. So I replaced both those. And what I've done is I have bought a replacement here for the power board. And let's get that out and we'll take a look at it. We've got the transformer out, and the rectifier board is out, and I just thought you might like to see here we've got every single wire to the playfield has been cut for some reason. I can't imagine why. That definitely was not necessary. And here we can see, okay, some of the problems that the previous person was dealing with. This burn mark here. They took some of the wires out of here and they soldered them on elsewhere. I'll show you where. Yeah, this was kind of a mess. Anyway, transformer is out, and we've got that over here. This is a monster. This thing weighs 12 pounds. I weighed it, so you can believe me, it's 12 pounds. I think it's about half and half, 6 pounds steel and 6 pounds wire coil. And here you can see some of the fudgy work that the previous person did. This has been there for 30 years, so I have no excuse. I probably should have done this a long time ago. Here's some of the wires that they've soldered them directly to the board here, and here, and I think what they were trying to do was take some of the heat away from these areas down here, where all the burning happened, burning of those plastic parts. And now replacing, I'm not going to replace this. This thing's in good working order, but this part, this is what, 45 plus years old. It's done its time. It's had enough work done on it. I don't need to do more work. You can see the back here. One of the problems with this, why I wouldn't want to touch this, is because all the wires coming out of the transformer, they all get soldered in directly to the board, which is quite a lot of effort, and I'm not sure I'm a good enough solderer to do that much of a job and be confident that it would last another 45 years. So I've bought a new one. So here we are. This is a new one, and you do not have to solder this one on. It has these connectors here, and all you do is you take your screwdriver, you loosen up the screws, slip the wire in the side, and tighten it up, and you're done. So hopefully that will go well. It may look like I have not accomplished much, and in truth I have not. What I have been doing, I've been looking at the schematics very closely for a couple hours, just trying to make sure I understand what's going on here. Now this wire here, connected to TP4, that was connected to this, taking power to the lights on the front of the game over here. And so I'm going to have to rehook these wires. I don't want to have them soldered on the board, on my new board. I'm going to put them back on the pins where they're supposed to be. But those pins were right here, where you see these burn marks, where this is actually burned right in half. So that means I'm going to have to replace this whole piece here with one of these, and take each of these wires out of here and out of here and connect them all into here. So that's going to be a real fun job. The other thing that I have figured out here, I have a couple of wires here that are hooked up to TP1, and so they used to be connected to these wires, which go into the playfield and provide power to the playfield general illumination lights, the always-on lights. And the interesting thing here is TP1 provides 5.4 volts DC, where in all the schematics it tells me that those lights are supposed to receive 7.3 volts AC. So they connected this up here, they should have connected it over here. Now it doesn't really matter, you know, 7 volts AC or 5 volts DC. Doesn't make a whole lot of difference just for lights. But if it had been anything else, it would probably be a big problem. However, having the lights based on the wrong power for the past 30 years is kind of discerning. Anyway, like I said, that's the kind of odd thing you find in these old machines that other people have owned, and I've owned it for 30 years, and I've just figured this out myself. Okay, so we're going to try and fix that up. And the other interesting thing I've figured out is I have replaced all of my displays on the back with modern LED displays. Now these used to take 190 volts. Now they run off of 5 volts. So that means that the whole machine runs a whole lot cooler, and this whole 190 volt setup here is no longer needed, which means that I really don't need this 240 volt circuit here, which supplies that. So one of the things I'm going to do before I'm done, I'm going to take out the fuse here to make sure that no power is going to anything needing that kind of power. So everything should run even cooler and neater than before. Okay, so this is looking much better than before. The soldering's going much better than I thought, because it's really fairly simple. All I've had to do is desolder one wire and pull it out one at a time. So I've taken all of these crappy wires off of here, and you can see the actual board now, and it doesn't look too bad. Well, still looks like crap, but we're replacing it. What I'm going to have to do now, I'm going to have to desolder all these wires on the back, and I have a handy reference diagram here in my homemade pinball manual of things I've collected over the years. So that is the next part of this job. This is the fun part. I've got about 14 wires, I think I counted, to come out of here. So I'm just going to heat them up and pull them out. Okay, that one came out, and that is number 12. So I'm going to put a label on it. So I can find it later. And pull that out of the way. And now let's try the next one. Come on. There we go. Okay, so I will just label that one right away. Number 10. I just need to do that a dozen more times. This is looking a whole lot better. I've got the new board on here. All these wires, I've desoldered them. They all went a lot better than that number 10 wire. And it didn't take much time at all. Got a bunch of wires over on this side. Now what I'm going to have to do is each of these wires is going to have to be plugged into one of these ports here, or on this side, one of these ports over here. So these I've straightened out the wires as much as I can. Now some of these wires are going to have to cross over. They're going to have to go from this side over into over here, from this side over into here. I think they are long enough to do that. But these wires are really old and brittle. They've been on the back of this board taking an awful lot of heat for the past, what did I say it was, 45 years. But anyway, it looks a whole lot better than this board. This looks nice and clean and brand new, and hopefully you've got no problems with this. You see what this looks like on the back and all the crappy repairs that people have made over the years. And this is what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to look like that. So that's nice. I'm going to feel a lot better about having this in there. So I've got a bunch of leftovers here. I've got this. I've got this bridge rectifier. I've got a bunch of fuses, a bunch of nuts and bolts and things that I will put into my post-apocalypse pinball repair kit. And okay, I'm going to have to look at the wires here and do a little thinking and get this put together. And hopefully the wires aren't too brittle. I can just reuse them. I thought I would show you connecting up one of these wires, but then I thought, why should I show that? That's all you do is you unscrew the screw, put the wire in, and you screw it back down. So I need to repeat 14 times. So that is what I did. Each of these wires, I took them out, I put a little bit of solder on the end of the wire, new solder on the end of the wire. I cut a couple of them. I didn't like the looks of the ends, so I cut them back and refitted them and put a little solder on the end of those as well. And now it's all set to go into the machine. So it looks beautiful. These wires sticking out the sides aren't as neat as it was with the wires sticking out the back, but it's actually much nicer, neater, safer, and looks pretty good. I've reinstalled the whole unit, and I've reconnected the current connectors, and everything seems to be going well. I took out the F2 fuse like I discussed because it produces 190 volts, which is needed for the displays, but the displays are now LEDs, and so they don't require that much voltage. So that makes the game a lot cooler, a lot safer. You can see all the switch lights are working. The general illumination, the always-on lights are not on, and that is because I have not hooked up these couple of temporary connectors that were in here. This one and this one. One of them does all the lights on the play field that brighten up the board, and one does all the lights on the cabinet here. So I'm going to have to do something about them. So now comes the hard part. I'm going to have to redo all of these connectors here because they're in bad shape, and as I just said, we've got to reconnect these things somehow. Okay, I'll let you know how that goes. I've pulled out these wires so I can get at them. I'm going to try and fix some of these errors that have been made here. Some really strange choices have been made here. Just cutting them in the first place was a strange choice, but my main job is to hook up these two wires back into that connector. And I'm going to have to do the same over here eventually. Look at this, they connected these with just some electrical tape, or that might, I think that's actually duct tape that they've used to hold these wires together. And yeah, it's no wonder they caused this thing to burn. Anyway, I should have mentioned, as I was putting this together, I was testing everything along the way, so as I was connecting these wires in here, I was ensuring there's a good connection from these screw connections down into the transformer itself. And when I turned it on, I only plugged in the power, first of all, the outside power, and tested all these test points to make sure I was getting the correct voltage through everything. And when I turned it on, I checked all the voltages on the voltage regulator board up here. They have a bunch of test points here, and everything's marked. I don't know if you can see that, but this should be 43 volts. This should be 12, 5. That's the ground. There's a couple other over here. You have to check them, and everything checked out. And once that was fine, I was able to turn the whole machine on. So next thing we're going to do, try to deal with these wires here, see if I can straighten out some of these problems, and add a couple of pins. I've got a crimping tool. I'll show you how I crimp these little connectors and fit them into this connector. We'll do that next. I've got one of these done. You have to put these little clips on here, and you clip those on with this crimping tool. This is more magic than art, so I'm just going to try to do one on camera. Okay, you fit it into the crimping tool in the smaller hole, so that it's just held there on the outside. There's two crimps going to have to be done. The first crimp is going to crimp the wire portion, and now I have to make sure I get the wire in there. Okay, and press, and hey, look, it worked. Got the first crimp done. Now I have to crimp it onto the yellow wire here, and we go in the bigger hole this time, and press, and hey, I managed to do it perfectly on camera. So both of these wires now have connectors on them. These are eventually going to fit into here. I've used red and yellow. I should have used red and orange, but I don't have any orange wire. I'm going to cut these two wires off, and then I'm going to have to reconnect these to them. So I'm just going to cut that off here. Okay, so all of this connection mess, this odd metal connector they used here, this shrink connector, this this computer cable connector, all of that is gone. And I have to cut a little extra wire off, a little insulation off of here. There we go. I don't have a really particularly good tool for removing insulation, unfortunately. Usually just a matter of well, I've got it. There we go. That one went a little easier. And to connect those to these wires, I have another little connector here. And this is a shrink connector. So what I do is I put that in here. Make sure I've got it all the way in. And I take this crimping tool. Get that lined up and clamp that down. And hopefully that's got good connection there, right? And we're going to do the same thing here. Fit this in the other end. Crimp down on that. Okay, and what I do with this then, I am able to heat this and it will shrink that down so that it's just a nice tight fit around the wire. Then I will slip one of these in here, the other one will go in here, and we'll be all set. I'll probably replace this one as well. That's kind of a nasty mess there. Okay, we'll see you when that's all done. These old wires are gone. I've got the new wires in place. Now we have to heat shrink the connectors. Use the hot air gun. Okay, there they go, they're starting to shrink. Okay. That looks good. I wonder, these look like shrink connectors that have never been shrunk, so I'm just going to do them as well. Okay. Okay. Looking good. Let that cool down, and then we will put the wires in and connect it, give it a test. I got two wires in. I'm just going to put this one, put it in the little hole there and press it in, and hopefully hear a little click as it gets into place. These wires are a little soft and they make it hard to push that in all the way. There we go. Okay, there, that's in. Okay, so this is what it looks like now. Just a bit better. I can maybe bundle those together to make it a little neater, but for now I'm just going to plug that in here. I'm going to test it. And This one here is the power input. So, okay, and when we turn this on, we should see all the lights come on the playfield. And there we go. All the lights are on. Okay, so as I think I told you, I disconnected a couple of lights back here. LED lights. I'm going to try putting them back together. But I think this has been a success. So now I've got to do the exact same thing with all of these nasty wires here that they've duct taped together. And I'm not going to show you that. Talk to you later. The job is done. This connector here with 20 pins in it, I removed every single pin, crimped on a new clean pin, and let's see, I replaced all these wires here that were badly connected previously. Over here I did one, I found one up here as well, and redid it. It was just held together with some electrical tape, and got rid of lots of junk. Got rid of all these computer connectors. Got rid of this old burnt connector. Got rid of all these crappy wires here, and hopefully things will be much safer, much cleaner. Took out the fuse number 2 there, so we no longer have any 190 volt circuits in here. That's going to make it run much safer. So turned it on, and everything's working. Went through all the test processes. Everything seems to be great, which is very fortunate, because I have no idea what I would have done if everything had screwed up. So that's it for today.